a member at patreon.com/Serie Chronicles for regular bonus episodes and content.
One of the sort of narratives of this game, people will love to pull up expected goals these days, and expected goals came up. And yes, like Donnarumma made like 2 expected goals worth of saves, basically, which was something remarkable. But at the same time, if you want to observe things always from that sort of slightly noodly perspective of statistics, the expected goals were basically exactly even up to the point when Italy went 2-0 up. It was only after Italy went 2-0 up that Hungary had all those chances. So it wasn't like it was a game that Hungary had all these chances when it was 0-0. It was Hungary got 2-0 down and then threw everything at them. And yeah, they were unlucky not to score there in the end. And that's one of the narratives that I did want to pick up on from this game, actually, is Donnarumma, who's been on his own weird journey since the Euros. I mean, don't forget, he was literally the player of the tournament in the Euros. He goes off to Paris Saint-Germain. And we do talk and criticize sometimes Italians for not being brave enough and taking those moves abroad. He does take the brave move. He goes abroad to Paris Saint-Germain. But there's brave and there's stupid. And I think going to a club that had Keylor Navas already, that was not making a plan to say goodbye to Keylor Navas, was just not the right decision for a player like Donnarumma, who is a very talented keeper. I think even in these 2 games reminded us of the flaws in his game, which is this almost sort of contradiction in him of being a giant. I mean, he's huge, and yet his biggest weakness in his game is crosses in the air, right? Like he's actually just a great on-the-line goalkeeper who can make those stops. Sorry, I just hit a spoon hanging out my teacup. But he makes those great on-the-line stops. But actually, sometimes he gets lost at crosses, and you think, you look like you should be the opposite of that. You look like you should be too big to get down sometimes to those incredible stops you make at your ankles. Why can't you make that sort of slightly more commanding presence in the box? But absolutely reminded us in these games that he can be world class goalkeeper. And perhaps if he had been all'altezza, if he'd been at the top of his game like this in the World Cup qualifying run, that would have made the difference. If he'd been on top of his game in that World Cup qualifying run. And I don't mean to single him out in that way, because I think you could do that with almost every player in Italy starting 11, right? If Jorginho just scores penalties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But it's one element of the story, right? Like it's one element of the story. And I do think Donnarumma's move to Paris Saint-Germain ultimately has hurt Italy quite a lot.
Actually, I don't. I know this sounds crazy, but I think it was great. I think that we're expecting too much from a kid, like he is world class. But there have been so many moments in which even Buffon, in his very experienced years, would pull out some terrible mistakes, and it would be like a row of them, like consecutive ones. And I do think that Donnarumma sort of was so brilliant for so long that we just expected that he was going to continue to do that. But it is a journey. And I personally think it's wonderful that he went to PSG. Yes, you're right. Not choosing consistency, not choosing that ability to always be first and being played as that, and having to rotate with someone who's as good as Keylor Navas, right? But he did play in the Champions League, and to be embarrassed like that by Real Madrid, an Italian coach in Carlo Ancelotti, who understood his flaws better than any other opposition coach, by the way. And the one thing he did was pressure Donnarumma when he was on the ball to commit that foul and obviously change the game around. That very interesting thing happened in England. That's what they were trying to do to Donnarumma, and he knew how to deal with it, which means that he's already picked up on a weakness and corrected it. That might have not happened anywhere else, but it happened in the Champions League, and he got the experience from that. And I feel that has somewhat paved the way for him to grow and learn. And this is why we need our players to not play in Serie B, but to go out and play in games that matter. So to go to whatever it is, like Notto going to Leeds, perhaps he'll play in the FA Cup, perhaps he'll, whatever it is. I think that's valuable experience, because even if you make a mistake, it's about how you come back from these mistakes. And you could see that they were targeting Donnarumma for these specific things that had happened and Ancelotti had picked up on. And he reacted brilliantly to it. And he has reacted brilliantly to all the criticism of last season. And that is what makes me feel like now we really do have a goalkeeper for the next 20 years, maybe not that long, but you know what I mean. And I personally love that about him. But I also feel like this has been a great time for Inter players. Like, I thought Barella was really good. I thought Acerbi was fantastic. And I hope that they can take that and shove it all on Barcelona in the Champions League and get that win, for Inzaghi. Because I was thinking, like, this is, Bonucci really did a slam dunk in the face of Allegri, who decided to leave him out against Monza. Like, what a tremendous performance from Bonucci, so clean, so perfect. And I feel like this was a great way to rejuvenate some of the players who perhaps are like a little bit down and out when it comes to their club football. But I just I love that there were changes there. I love that we saw Mazzocchi getting his debut. I love that Notto was chosen, Scamacca was taken off, or whatever it is, I love that obviously Raspadori can continue his beautiful journey that he started at Napoli. And I think, oh God, Spalletti is going to turn him into a superstar. But I do want to go back to this point in the sense that he better continue doing that. Like, again, not choosing Zaniolo, it upsets me, but I think, okay, fine, you have your reasonings for it. Sometimes he just ends up being a little bit stubborn about things. And you said, again, they went 2-0 down and then Hungary threw everything at them. Okay, so that means you took your foot off the gas. And you said this is a team that always continues to be on the front foot. That's what Mancini's, mantra is. And he was really annoyed at the fact they did take their foot off. But there is still that part of Italy where you're not sure whether you can depend on them for 90 minutes. And so it's like carrying all the problems of Serie A, like for Inter and Juventus, and it's being carried into their blood right now, So I just want to make sure that he continues being bold, that it's meritocracy, that eventually we do see more and more of the other players and not necessarily always counting on Jorginho and Verratti. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of Verratti, so I personally prefer Italy without him. And I just really hope that the likes of Lorenzo Insigne and Ciro Immobile are not again going to be the players that we have to depend on when it comes time to qualifying for the Euros.
I don't think that Insigne is going to ever have his role back in the way that it was in the national team. That's my personal suspicion, but I could be wrong. You know what's great about making this show with Mina, everyone, is that not sometimes, all the time, she says things and I'm like, oh yeah, actually I didn't think of things that way. And I think what she just said about Donnarumma, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think of things that way. And that's an interesting perspective.
You do that with me all the time.
Maybe I've been wrong all along, and actually his long-term growth is served by having this rougher time at PSG in the short term.